Jay, I appreciate you joining me today. If you could you just give a little background about your experience?
A little background, because it kind of gets convoluted.
Okay.
Currently employed as a firearms instructor and a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently working full-time as a firearms instructor on a temporary appointment, so that'll probably last another year and a half, and then I'm back to patrol.
Now, when you say police officer, what department are you?
A major metropolitan police department.
Major metropolitan. Okay, cool.
Yes. We'll leave it at that, because I don't speak on behalf of them. I only speak on behalf of myself, and my opinions, my philosophies do not necessarily match one-to-one with theirs.
Right.
Personal, philosophical, so I do not speak on their behalf. So I don't disclose for that reason. It's it's not
completely
that I'm ashamed,
understand.
But it is what it is.
Yeah, no, completely understand. So tell me, firearms instructor.
Yes.
You said you're doing that now. I mean, can you talk about maybe some of you're doing a lot of groups, a lot of civilian work, contract work?
Almost all police recruits at this time.
Okay.
Basic firearms instruction. This is not super advanced, not super high speed. This is trying to get people to pass the basic minimum qualifications to graduate the academy.
Mm-hmm.
We do some additional work to try and give them some, I guess, more real world skills after we do that, to include things like shooting and moving, shooting from behind cover, around cars.
Okay.
Things that make more sense, because standard qualification is standing in one spot and banging away at a target from 5 yards back to 25 yards with the pistol. With time, you have turning targets, but it is a very static experience, which if you ever review footage of any armed encounter, that almost never happens. Things are very dynamic. Movement, running, jumping behind cover, people fall down, crazy things happen. So a qualification course, while it's a basic measure of skills, it's not really what you just want to turn somebody loose with and go, okay, now you know everything you need to know. Should you ever have to use your gun for real?
Right.
So unfortunately that, since you spend most of that time trying to get people to pass, the time that you spend on those more intermediate to advanced skills is by nature of the beast kind of limited, which is a shame. So.
Now, when you say like the test itself is kind of static,
yes,
is that's pretty much the test? So it's kind of just with your personal experience and just with you personally as a firearm instructor, you add in the moving, the cover, all that concealment. Is that something that you do on your own, or is that actually part?
It is part of the course,
okay.
Or I should say not part of the timed course of fire. When we do that, there's no score. It is literally just this is for your edification. I'm going to teach you some skills that will help you. I should back up and say that none of this program is my original creation.
Okay.
In fact, I don't know that I have an original idea in my brain.
Right.
As many do in many fields, I stand on the shoulders of giants. People who came before me who understood what needed to be done to try and get people to understand basic concepts. This program,
right.
My predecessor, I basically parroted him until I became comfortable with it, and then slowly but surely made my own spin. But I would say it's still probably in the 90th plus percentile what he was teaching when I showed up and said, "Hey, I'm going to take over from you."
Right.
So I don't mean to. I'd mention his name, but I don't know that he wants to.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's pretty.
But also a brilliant shooter and a brilliant instructor himself. So.
Very cool. I mean, that's true, because even martial arts wise, it's kind of. I've always been told, learn what I teach before you start making up your own stuff.
Yes.
And even
that's a never-ending story.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. I mean, now, how many officers or would you say like in the class? Like,
the recruit class right now is 109 individuals.
Okay.
When I have them on the range, I'm teaching usually 1/6 that amount.
Okay.
So typically anywhere at this point between 18 and 20 guys. I say guys, generically males and females. When I have them on the line, it's usually 50 and 50. So I'll have half on the line shooting whatever exercise we're working, and the other half will be back at the bench loading magazines.
Okay.
With recruits, you want to have on the line a 1-to-1 instructor-student ratio.
Okay.
I know that there's the old trope about cops are horribly trained and can't shoot, but most of these guys get at least 56 hours of firearms just from the academy. Some get additional instruction from their agency.
Okay.
By the time I'm done with them, they'll have shot between 1,800 and 1,900 rounds. You know, it's not enough to where you know, if you're not used to stuffing rounds into magazines, you're going to have some bloody thumbs.
Right.
So when people come out of my program, they're pretty comfortable with their firearm.
Right.
Now, if they set that gun down and never touch it for a whole year and then have to qualify again, that's kind of on them.
Yeah.
I can't babysit everybody.
Now, how long would they have to qualify again? Is this yearly, monthly? How does that work?
The DCJS, which is the criminal justice people who set standards in the state of Virginia, mandate once a year with pistol.
Okay.
Some agencies do more.
Okay.
But the bare minimum that most cops qualify with their pistol is once a year. Some federal agencies do more. I know the air marshals, when last I checked, and this may have changed, do 6 times a year.
Okay.
Owing to the fact that they might have to shoot somebody in a very crowded little metal tube flying at 30 to 40,000 feet. That's probably not a bad idea.
Right.
But
once a year sounds, even 6 times a year. I mean, I know myself, I'm probably at the range at least once a week. Yeah. You know, and that I've been told that is pretty much a minimum that you might need to do.
It depends on your time and money. Cops are also notoriously cheap.
Right.
You know, and if
but you guys get a lot of ammo free, from what I understand.
That's a misnomer.
Okay.
There are occasionally some agencies that hand out ammo.
Okay.
Like, if you want to shoot, here's some ammo.
Yeah.
I will tell you that it's been my experience since I've been involved in law enforcement, a whopping 6 years, not that long. But most agencies, because of money, don't do that anymore. They just the budget's not there. For agencies that had that money, especially when everyone decided to run out and buy every case of everything that wasn't nailed down, even if the agencies had the budget, they couldn't get the ammo. Okay. My own agency, we were hurting, and the gentleman who just retired, who was running the whole program, notorious hoarder of ammo and supplies. Like, he, you know, and I can't blame him, given the fact you never know when you place an order if it's going to show up in a month or a year. Right. And at the same time, he was feeling the pinch. He was like, I don't have any ammo to give anybody. You can't have any ammo. Okay. So now, you know, a lot of times with cops, if they want to go shooting, while there are occasional opportunities to do so through their agency, a lot of times it's on your own time and your own dime. You know, I mean, if you want to get better at something, it's often you, right? You have to do it. Right. So, you know, with a gun, if you dry fire, I feel like with some live fire to augment that, because you have to understand how that gun works in recoil. You know, there's no substitute for that. Like, you can't dry fire recoil. It doesn't exist. But I've seen very motivated individuals working their dry fire get to at least what I consider an expert level with the gun in terms of manipulation, marksmanship, movement, with very little live fire, but a lot of dry fire.
Majority dry fire. Okay.
An exceptional amount of motivation. You know, most people don't do that. Competitive shooters do, you know, because it's their thing. It's their hobby. I'm going to dry fire. Oh, tonight, after dinner, it's dry fire. You know, before time to go to work, I'm up a little early, dry fire. Right. But, you know, it's unrealistic for your average person who carries a gun for work to say you need to dry fire for a half hour every day. They won't do it. Or if they do, it'll be very sloppy. Okay. And it will make them worse. Right. You know, it turns into they would have been better off not doing it. I know in your previous podcast, Shannon was talking about dry fire sessions, like very short, very purposeful dry fire. And that is what I do. Before I go to work or after I come home, one of the two, I'll clear my weapon, you know, remove the ammunition from the room, and then I will do 10 perfect draws, 10 perfect trigger presses, and 10 magazine exchange. Like drop a mag, reload a mag. Just 10. Okay. And then I put it away. It takes me 2 to 3 minutes. But at the same time, I figure if I do that 4 times a week, throw out a couple days here and there for vacation, I got sniffles or whatever, that's like, you know, a couple thousand rounds, or I should say a couple thousand repetitions of those skills that in terms of money was zero cost. And in terms of time was minimal investment. Right. Yeah. And you're making sure that you're doing that perfect draw. Yes. Just focusing only on that. Yeah. I'm not trying to go super fast. Right. You know, I'm not trying to burn it down. When I draw, I want to come up, pick up the sights, move forward into a press out, prep the trigger, break the shot at full extension, you know, bring it back in, finger off the trigger, cover, scan, get back into the holster properly, and then just repeat. Okay. 10 times.
Now, what would be maybe your recommendations for, say, like the civilian who is looking to purchase a firearm, but putting in the training for that.
Okay. Are we talking about somebody who's ground zero, never picked up a gun, never sent a round down range, says today is the day I need to get a gun, I need to learn how to use it?
Correct.
It will help you to take a training class.
Okay.
And off the top of my head, I could name like 4 or 5 guys to go to that are worth it. You know, every local range typically has a concealed carry class.
Right.
I won't say that they're of no benefit. They're always of some benefit. I think the first class I ever took when it came to firearms, accepting the almost no instruction I got back when I was in the Navy, was a concealed carry class offered by a local range.
Okay.
I think the guy was like a retired cop. He wasn't bad, you know. I came away from it with some takeaways. So from that perspective, it was not a bad class.
Okay.
But you quickly start to learn, especially if you start finding yourself around other shooters, and if they have some skill, you start realizing like what you don't have. I think that's one of the biggest hurdles, because I spent a lot of time, you know, I knew that I needed a gun. I kind of went from, I know I need a gun, and it's just my talisman. It's this thing that wards off evil, right? Because I didn't really practice with it. I didn't really understand what it was, but I just knew I needed one. To, at some point, realizing, well, if I don't have it on me, it doesn't help. And if I don't know how to use it, it doesn't help.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to buy a bunch of ammo and do a lot of shooting. And that was good. And I kind of knew, well, I need to get more accurate. But I didn't have any standards of practice. I just knew more accurate. So I spent probably my first year of what I consider, when I got more serious with the gun, just going to the range and just sending rounds. And yeah, I could shoot a really good group. It took me all day. But no one had ever said, hey, now you got to speed it up. No one ever said, hey, now you got to shoot with your support hand only. Right. Hey, now you need to learn how to clear malfunctions. You know, now you need to work on your reloads, and you need to understand different kinds of reloads. Like, no one was there to do that. So I had no mentor, no coach. Right. I was literally just in my rowboat, just kind of tooling around in circles in the middle of the lake. Something that changed that paradigm for me a lot. There was a guy who I sometimes talk to, but I haven't talked to in a long time, which is my bad. He's a great guy. His name's Helmy Ashabley. He runs, at the time, iShot was his company, and he branched off, changed brands to Search Systems. Okay. And he was the first guy who was like, you should take a training class. He just straight up, you need to do that. Right. And he said, I'm going to go take a class. This guy, Pat Goodale, out in West Virginia, it's a 3-day class, pistol 1 and 2. You should come. And he organized this trip, and a bunch of us went. And it was kind of this watershed moment, you know, because Pat had us shooting around cars and clearing malfunctions. He like handed out dummy rounds. He goes, you got to put these in your magazines. Right. And you have to properly clear malfunctions. Shooting at distance, you know, shooting prone, shooting kneeling, shooting around barricades. And he would do things to add stress. And it was like, you know, my mind is blown. Yeah. This is something completely different to me. And so I did that. And then, so now my practice became a little more purposeful, because I knew I had weaknesses. And obviously one of the best things you could do is identify your weaknesses and then work to try and make them not. Right. And then Helmy's like, you know what? You should compete. You really need to go and compete in some matches. Right. And it's the same thing. You know, you show up and you're awful. And everyone does better than you. But it gives you like this checklist of, well, I got to get better at this. I've got to get better at this. I've got to get better at this. I've got to get better at this. And so, you know, it gives you this opportunity to kind of hack away at those things. Right. And he was the same guy who like pushed me to become an instructor. Like, seriously, I probably wouldn't be where I am now if I had never run into him. So I honestly kind of owe a lot to him and his influence. Yeah. I have digressed considerably. Brand new shooter. I need a gun, and I need to learn how to use it. I will probably say something that will get me crucified in some circles, but I think you should go out and buy a Glock 19, a case of ammo, a couple extra magazines, and a holster, and then go take some classes. Yeah. And I say this saying that the Glock 19, it's not a perfect gun. It is not. I'm never going to be the guy who's like, there's no better gun than the Glock. But I think it is the perfect confluence of utility, concealability. It's pretty easy to shoot. If you have it for a while and you decide, you know what, this gun is not for me, unless you've run it over with your car a bunch of times, you could probably go out and sell it for what you paid for it. It's like almost a zero-sum investment, like the money in, money out. So I think for most people, that is a great gun. It's a great first gun, and it's a great ongoing gun. When I'm not at work, I still carry a Glock 19.
Now tell me this. What's the difference, the Gen 3 and the Gen 4? I mean, I know the basics of it, but I still see a lot of people gravitating towards the Gen 3.
When the Gen 4 first came out, I would 100% tell you that Gen 3 is where it's at. Don't buy the Gen 4. Glock has done considerable work to iron out the kinks. When the 4 first came out, I saw them malfunctioning all over the place. They put a spring in that gun that was way too strong for 9mm ammunition. The extractor wasn't particularly great. That caused some issues. But the bones of it were there, like some upgrades that Glock probably should have done all along. I believe that they have ironed out all of those kinks. And now I will tell you that you should buy whatever floats your boat. I will say that right now, blank sheet of paper, I could buy either the 3 or 4. I'd probably buy the 4.
Really?
Interchangeable back straps, so you can change the distance from the front strap to the back strap. And the medium and the large come with beaver tail. So you can get something to keep you from getting slide bite and get a little higher into the back strap of that gun. Reversible magazine release, which is not there on the 3, and it's a bigger one, so you can get your finger on it a little better.
Is it bigger if you put the Vickers? Is it even bigger than that one?
It is wider. It doesn't stick out as far. I don't know if Vickers makes one for the Gen 4. If you have a Gen 3, I very much love the Vickers magazine release. I feel like it's the perfect, because the extended one on the 34 and 35, it's too far. It sticks out so far. I'd lean against something, boop, magazine would pop out. And the Vickers doesn't do that. I ended up, you could either take the extended one that Glock sells and you can sand it down, or you could just buy a Vickers one and put it in there. And I feel like that's the best thing to do for a 3. The 4 has a different recoil assembly. Its practical effect on anybody doesn't matter. It is what it is. It's a fixed entity. Every Glock on the planet has the worst sights on the planet. When it comes out of the box, you got to put better sights on it. Doesn't matter if it's Gen 3 or Gen 4. But yeah, right now I'd buy the 4.
Buy the 4.
Yeah. So once again, you get that gun, get some mags, get a holster. Also a good belt. You're probably into this we're talking about $1,000 now, and I realize that this is not the low cost alternative. I can offer one of those too, but you got to go take a class, spend a good amount of time dry fire, occasional live fire, find somebody to shoot with who's better than you, who knows what they're doing, who can coach you. That's the good thing. Once a week, some people can't afford time and money. I feel like if you're really serious and you can afford it, you should be going at least once a month. But regular dry fire. If the Glock is too much money, and sometimes it is, I realize that once you start talking, everything else, the gun itself not too bad, but you have to support it, right? You need a holster, and not like a Uncle Mike's $20 ballistic nylon. One size fits most holster, because it doesn't work well. The holster alone could be anywhere from $60 to $120. A good belt, $50 to $100. Case of ammo, $200. 3 extra mags. Buy the Magpul mags. Don't buy the Glock mags because they're cheaper and they're better, I think. $15 each. Yeah, as a side note, I think Magpul, except for people who have to buy Glock factory mags for whatever reason, if you can get a Magpul mag for your Glock, I have nothing but good experiences with them. A friend of mine, Andy Lander, works for the NRA. He's got one of the Magpul Glock mags. I think he's loaded and fired out of it somewhere close to 2,000 rounds already. I think he dropped it in the mud puddle. He didn't even clean it out. He is abusing it beyond what you should, and it still has yet to fail him. So I don't know how that magazine's going to hold up 5 years from now. But based on that abuse cycle, that's a pretty good endorsement. So, save a little money there. And you're going to have to get a carry permit. If you're someplace where you can get a carry permit, you got to get a carry permit. And if you're legally allowed to carry and you're going places where you can carry, then you should carry. Because it's like the parachute you don't have on you and you jump out of an airplane, or the fire extinguisher you don't have when your house is on fire. It doesn't do you any good unless you have it with you. Because
I think, that's great, because I think that leads into the other conversation we were kind of talking about earlier. I have a lot of even friends, family who really don't see the other side of things. It's kind of just getting up, hopping in the car, heading to work, coming home, eating dinner, kids practice, this going to bed.
American dream.
Right, 9 to 7. But they don't really see what's really going on. I mean, I've trained jiu-jitsu. I have state police in the class, and just even talking to them sometimes, just some of the stuff that they tell me, just can just freak anybody out. Yeah. I don't know if it's just stories or what can you say, just to kind of bring some clarification, or just to show maybe the other side what the average person isn't seeing, to kind of make it seem like. Because they might see somebody who talks a pro gun and like, you're just a nut. I don't see this side of things. I mean, what could we talk about that kind of maybe shed just a little bit of light? Or,
well, let's talk statistics. Statistically speaking, if you live in a middle class or upper class neighborhood, you don't deal drugs, you're not involved with the drug trade, you don't hang out with any questionable individuals, and you don't hang out in any questionable places. You can probably go your whole life and never have any problems. Probably. Statistically speaking, most cops never fire their guns. I mean, judging by that, we could just say, okay, well, cops, you don't have to carry guns around, good to go. That flies in the face of occasionally police get into very serious situations. Some members from my own agency have been in gunfights. 2 ambushed and killed by gunfire. So I mean, that's how deaths in my agency happen. It's not a lot, but it's bad. It's bad. Even in good neighborhoods, occasionally bad stuff happens. I live in a very nice neighborhood. One of my colleagues from another agency likes to make fun of me about how nice my neighborhood is. I think about a year ago there was a shootout in front of the Harris Teeter.
Really?
Yeah. An armored car pulls up. Guy goes to deliver money, and I don't know why the individuals in question decided that was the time and place where they were going to try and hit an armored car.
Right.
But one of them gets out and exchanges gunfire with the armored car guy who's carrying the bag. As I understand it, and this is hearsay from a third party, but I believe that gentleman was a military vet and had a pretty good idea. Like, he saw the signs, like pretty situationally aware that somebody had bad intentions. And so before the other guy even had his gun on target, he was already out and ready to go. Okay. So the bad guy gets the worst end of that deal, jumps back in the car, and they flee. Okay. Armored car guy unscathed. But he was paying attention. Right. And like I said, I've shopped at this Harris Teeter. I can't even tell you how many times. I could have gone there for lunch. Like, I literally could have been there in that parking lot. Right. Do I want to get involved in a third-party shootout? No, probably not. Not especially not on duty. Right. I'm not wearing armor, don't have a radio, and backup is whatever. Not to mention the fact if you're running around with a gun in your hand and you're not wearing something that says police on it, there's a good chance you get shot by somebody else too. So that's a dangerous situation, by the way. Plainclothes cops, always in more danger of getting shot by another cop. But I digress. Like, shootout right there. There's an armed robbery at an ATM 2 blocks from my house. I think it was middle of the night. And like I said, this is a good neighborhood. If you drove through this neighborhood, you'd be like, oh, there's no crime here. And for the most part, you'd be right. Right. Now, when we start talking about living closer to the city, or maybe living closer to a neighborhood that isn't so good, and I'm generalizing, crime goes everywhere. As long as there's cars, people are mobile, and therefore crime is mobile. But you're, with a greater population density, you're more likely to encounter crime. You just are. You up that factor considerably, depending on where you go in your off hours, especially riding public transportation, weekends, late at night, especially if you like to go out and get really drunk or high or anything like that. Your odds of being victimized, they start rising. So I think probably intended in talking about carrying a gun is also the responsibility to be thoughtful about what you do. Right. If you got a gun, you can't just go get into fisticuffs with somebody because he said something to you. You got to be the bigger person and say, that's not for me. Right. I remember way back when I was in the Navy, way before I don't think I owned a gun. I think I shot a gun a handful of times at this point, so it wasn't even part of my world. And in a parking lot with my friend, we literally just pulled into a parking space at the Sizzler. We were going to go eat, big times when you're in the Navy. Right. And another car pulls up, And this guy's like, hey, that's my parking space.
Oh, God.
And I just kind of stand there like, what? And my friend, he's like, you take the guy on the left, I'll take the guy on the right. And I'm like, okay, well, let's break this down. We can probably beat him, but now we've just beat up people over a parking space, and he's parked behind you, so you can't even leave.
Right.
This is probably going to be the stupidest thing ever.
Right.
So I'm like, the odds of something stupid happening start going through the roof. And, for what I was probably like 20 or 21 at the time, the fact that I had that moment of clarity is somewhat surprising, because I don't feel that I was particularly squared away mentally back then.
Right.
But I just thought, this is stupid, and that's one of those situations where people start doing dumb things and it escalates.
Right.
So I'm like, no, let's get in the car and leave. And so we did. We just left.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put yourself in that situation and then you contribute to it, even if you're getting the worst end of the deal, and then you produce a weapon and quote defend yourself.
Yeah.
Courts typically take a pretty dim view of that whole situation, right?
Okay.
You're not the angel. You weren't standing there at an ATM getting $20 when someone came up behind you and tried to jack you.
Yeah.
You're literally escalating the problem or certainly contributing to it. So, you can't do that. If you're going to carry a gun, can't do it.
Right, because I think that was... But I would say if starting off, if you're interested in buying a gun, I think I just got lucky in this process because I started doing martial arts first.
Yes.
I wasn't even... Carrying a gun wasn't even in my universe at that time.
Yeah.
And I think if anybody who's really considering about taking responsibility to own a firearm, take a martial art.
Yes.
Because I think getting my ass kicked really humbled me. Getting my ass kicked by females, 50, 70 pounds lighter than me.
Yeah.
And then again, it just kind of transitioned into that, because I can go to the range now and kind of look left and right. And there are times that I've left after maybe 5 minutes of shooting, because it's just like, this is just insane. Some of the things that that you see on a range people do.
Yes.
And again, I don't know how to fix it. I think you see so many people saying ban this, ban that, but it's like it's hard to do. You can't even do that. But then again, I can at some point see that point, because I see a father with a double feed. He's with his daughter. It's a 45. It's jammed. He's just hammering the hell out of a slide.
Doesn't know how to fix it.
No, he's got his finger on his trigger, and he's just like this, and he unwillingly just turns towards her, and he's pointing it at her.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing?
I will very occasionally speak with people on the range.
Yeah.
I don't work there occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll go speak with the staff and get somebody thrown out.
Right.
I've done that maybe 5 times. I just, for the most part, especially if they're not hurting anybody, you be the worst marksman ever. Your gun handling might completely be awful.
Right.
But, you're exercising your Second Amendment right. You're, I think Brian Mossy was talking about in the martial arts world, when you go to a seminar, and there's guys there who are literally just there because they think, like, I want to go to a Guro Inosanto seminar, but I'm just going to twirl sticks. I'll take a lot of breaks. We'll sit around, talk, drink Cokes, and then we'll practice some more.
Right.
For those guys, Guro Dan couldn't go on tour and give those seminars. Those guys' money spends just as good as yours. And if it was like you and 3 other serious people there, then you wouldn't go to a Guro Dan seminar.
Right.
He wouldn't be there. It's the same thing in the firearms world. That guy, who's got, I don't know, crap gun, and he's shooting a target that's as wide as you and me standing side by side, and he's using every square inch of that target, putting holes in it, and he's basically turning money into noise, but he's supporting ammunition producer, firearms industry, that range. Like, he's keeping the lights on and keeping everything going. Like, I couldn't go to someplace like Elite Shooting Sports and shoot if it weren't for all those guys.
Right.
And occasionally I see guys and they're shooting at a high level, but for the most part you don't. But like I said, if it weren't for them, we'd be shooting, I don't know, there'd be like one brand of gun and ammunition would be really expensive, and we stand out in the field someplace because there wouldn't be anything going on. Like, the industry wouldn't exist.
Okay.
So like I said, up to a point, I'm like, have fun, knock yourself out.
Right.
Like I said, when it starts to become like dangerous, or if somebody like completely is locked up, like I saw one guy and he had like a 308, it was the AR-10. I don't even know what brand it was. I think it was a Rock River, and it had double fed. And so he's standing there just looking, I mean, literally just looking at it. Like, he's not doing anything. Like, he's not trying to pull the mag. Like, just, he is stuck. Like, this is not part of his computer program.
Right.
He's blue screen to death. He is the human equivalent of when Windows quits on you.
Right.
So I finally kind of walked over there and went, hey, lock the bolt to the rear. And he looked at me, just lock the bolt to the rear. And so he does. I'm like, all right, put the charge down forward. I'm like, cool, pull out the magazine. And he does, and they all fall out. I'm like, all right, look in the chambers, they're clear. I'm like, all right, okay, you can reload it, you're good. But it was like, and it's back to what I said about, when you start and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know. And it's hard because, there is a element of ego, arrogance, and ignorance, and when you stir them all together, it becomes a mess.
Right. I think that's what martial arts kind of takes out.
Yeah. You take enough ass kickings, and yeah. I'm not the level you are, sir, but I have taken a few ass kickings myself. Yes. And yeah, it helps you. It helps you realize you don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you know you're good, you still know I can still learn something else. Right. Yeah.
And again, I think that was the easy transition for myself when I went to concealed carry. Just because you got to walk away from a lot of stuff. I mean, I even tell my wife, I said, look, if somebody calls you an ugly bitch, babes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going to walk away.
Yeah, we got to kind of walk, just do what it is. Yeah. But I think, another eye-opening thing for me that I'd also tell people to do is take a trauma course.
Yes.
Beforehand.
Yes.
I think.
Did you take a Dark Angel medical?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, highly recommend his class.
And that.
Brilliant class.
I think when he got to the second slide, it was like you said, you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. And I couldn't believe that I went this long without carrying just a tourniquet for that matter, or just not even knowing the basics of what to do.
Yes.
Because again, I think that should be maybe the first thing that you should do. Just see what a firearm can do to somebody, what it can do to you, and then assess if that's something that you really want to have that responsibility for. But I mean, how often would you recommend taking, say, trauma classes? Is this maybe a yearly thing?
I think if you're willing to put in some supplemental practice on occasion, every 2 to 3 is good.
Okay.
But I don't know that you want to let it lapse more than that if you can help it. I will say that for the most part, applying a tourniquet, that's not rocket science. You should practice putting it on yourself, putting it on one-handed, wrong-handed. If you can do that a couple times, probably good to go.
Yeah.
Probably not a bad idea to practice doing it seated in the car. I actually keep one in my door pocket and one in the center console.
Okay.
Because I figure, car, that's a good place to get messed up.
Right.
Of all the things we do on a daily basis, the thing that is most likely to contribute to injury or death is that automobile.
Right.
And we treat it very cavalierly. You don't even think about it, right? You just get in, you fire it up, buzz on to work, text, call people, mess with your stereo. Right. You never know what's going to happen.
And again, a car accident could cause the same type of trauma that you could see. Yes. And people who say, I don't need to take that, it's like, how many car accidents have you seen in your lifetime? Yeah. I mean, just do it for that.
Yeah.
I'm even with my daughter now, we got a SWAT tee that she's learning how to put on. And then I'll throw that in her backpack. Yeah. That's just something. My son, not mature enough just yet. Yeah. But eventually.
He'll get there.
Yeah.
He'll get there. Yeah, the one thing I'd say, and this, like that, the Dark Angel medical class was maybe 10% gunshot wounds and stab wounds and slashes, and then, talked about all sorts of other shock, other trauma, snake bite, insects, falling, electrocution. I mean, it's a full class. You do that in a Red Cross CPR AED class, and you've basically done the entire curriculum for basic first responder, which is pretty much the highest level I know of that any police officer is trained to, although sadly that standard is not adhered to very often. It's usually a lower standard.
Really?
But I was trained to that standard for a while, and I was actually pretty appreciative of it. I thought it was a pretty high level, because when I first got trained, we did over a week of medical. And like I said, we spent some time with CPR, AED, along with everything else. And so, like I said, if you do that Dark Angel class and then throw in some Red Cross CPR, I feel like you've hit first responder level in terms of what you know. And I think for anybody, that's not a hard level. It's not, it's not this huge hurdle like, oh my God, I'll never know that.
Right.
It's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of time, and a little bit of money.
And again, it's just taking the class. It definitely was eye-opening. You can definitely learn a lot. But again, like you said, it's not really that difficult.
Yeah.
You can just do simple things, halo patches, stuff like that.
Yes.
Just to keep yourself alive.
Yeah.
And again, all the scenarios that we went through were automobile accidents. Occasionally we had a couple of videos from in the field type stuff that we saw.
Yeah.
But everything else, like I said, just.
I mean, if you talk about worst comes to worst, let's talk about, and it's big in the news. I'll just go ahead and bring it up. But you talk about a mass casualty incident, Boston bombing.
Mm-hmm.
Very few people lost their lives, but there were over 264 people injured.
Right.
Some of them limb loss. I mean, if you don't understand the basics of a tourniquet, people are going to die.
Right.
You have a very small amount of time to keep blood in the body. Was it hypovolemic shock? When you 60% of your blood's gone, that's adios. Like you can't put it back in. Even if they immediately start stuffing fluids back into you, odds are good you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Orlando. There's a instructor. I have not taken a class with him. He writes quite a bit on the web. I like what he has to say. I would like to take a class with him. Greg Ellifritz. And he posted a rebuttal because somebody was talking about response to an active shooter, active killer. And the guy's advocating putting like rifle plates and a rifle and a helmet in your car and running out to your car and getting it and then running back in. Mm-hmm. And Greg says, and I agree, that's crazy. If you get clear and stay clear.
Right.
If you run back in there, then either if you have the time to get out and get back in, then the police have the time to get there, and at a minimum they're going to corral you and ask you what the hell you're doing. Right. You may get shot. It's better to remove yourself from that problem.
Okay.
He said if you want to throw something in your car, throw medical stuff in your car.
Right.
And be prepared to use it. There are going to be a lot of hurt people, whether it's bomb, firearm, anything, it doesn't matter. There are going to be people that are injured. Your ability to help with immediate help and triage is going to be 10 times better than your ability to run in and out. Okay. I mean, if you're in there and you have a gun and you can engage, no doubt, that's the thing to do. Everyone is pretty much advocating run, hide, fight.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen any of those videos. The Texas Department of Safety did a video which was very slickly produced. It's pretty short. I think you can find it on YouTube. I'm sure you can Google it.
Okay.
And I think it's probably one of the best, like just across the board for anybody in terms of its philosophy. Mm-hmm. And the first thing it tells you is, if you're gunfire, you run the other way.
Right.
Run, get your running shoes and get going. Which is a side note, a failing of many gun people is to completely neglect physical fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying you got to be the marathon runner. I'm not saying you got to be as fast as a sprinter, but you should be able to move yourself from point A to point B with some sense of urgency without needing an oxygen tank and a week to recover at the end of that.
Right.
If you can't run for whatever reason, you're corralled, hide. And then failing that, if it's forced upon you, then fight. And you got to fight like you're already dead.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Another website, Breach Bang Clear. Do you read them?
Yeah.
They were talking about that, and here's where I go into vulgarity, but they had a whole article called Fuck Up Their Canoe. And that was a brilliant article.
Okay.
And it talks about, if at this point, if all yours is a speed bump, be the worst speed bump they ever ran into.
Okay.
Do something to disrupt their plan. Mm-hmm. So those are your options. Yeah. If you have a firearm on you, you have more options. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that a pistol versus rifle is not a fun equation. Gamed out, it's a very difficult one. You better be really good with your marksmanship.
Yeah, that's not even factoring stress.
Yeah. Which will be bad. But, I'd rather have that gun than not have it.
Because I think, even talk with like you said, with Orlando, hearing how many died, I can't really understand, like, if it was the gun at first or just the bleed out. Because I think that's got to be probably the most horrible thing.
Because there was a hostage situation, and I don't know, obviously there's going to be after action reports and everyone's going to beat this to death. Mm-hmm. But there was one officer on scene who was working security, as I understand it, he wasn't at the door when the guy made entry because he was looking for somebody else inside the club. And then when the guy gets in there, obviously chaos breaks out. I know that officer attempted to engage him. Contrary to what most active shooters do, this guy was in it. He dug in and fought, which makes him kind of contrary to just, some crazy kid, ideologically driven, whether you say he's crazy or not. And he probably was. I mean, who decides, oh, today's the day I go and kill a bunch of gay people because of whatever reason? But this guy, he didn't care. If I'm going to be in a gunfight, I don't care. Like he was perfectly fine with that, which, like I said, is a rarity. Almost never happens. Usually when you deal with somebody who's an active killer, as soon as they're engaged or cops show up or somebody with a gun, they either quit or they suicide or they attempt suicide by police. Statistically speaking, the odds of being none of those three are, aside from Orlando, infinitesimal. It just doesn't exist. You harken back to Virginia Tech, that knucklehead Cho. As soon as he heard the cops running up the stairs, he went into a room and shot himself. Was it Lanza? Just gave up. When the cops showed up, he just gave up. Just sat there in his car, like, I give up. So, determined resistance is still a better bet than not.
Right.
If you can do it.
Okay. Because, I hear, and again, you can hear from one side, just like the civilians who've never been in combat, never served, and then you can hear from police officers and military who have been on the other side, and it's just so obvious how the perception is so different.
Yes. How
ways of handling stuff as ways of not handling it's just completely, like, there's no gray in a sense. You can, I don't know if you heard of the Jocko Wilkins podcast. He's ex-Navy SEAL.
Have not.
And he just talks about, say, ISIS, for example, and just what you need to do. It's like there's no negotiation, there's no nothing. It's just complete eradication of that. And I think that's one of the kind of things that I want to do, again, with this podcast, is kind of get the other side of things. Because I don't think people, like I said, who do that 9 to 5 don't really hear and just easily read what's on the net, what's given to you through news, and just take that as gospel.
Yes.
And I think that's just as dangerous as pretty much anything else that you can hear.
Yeah, the news has an agenda, right? No matter what their slant, left, right, center, their agenda is they want you to keep tuning in.
Right.
And the 24-hour news cycle feeds that frenzy. And if I don't come up with a good song, you'll lose interest and you'll tune out. I was very frustrated with a terrorist incident going immediately to gun control. And my big frustration with that is that no proposed legislation would have even remotely stopped the problem. The only things that you can do to stop somebody like that involve, and we can set the Second Amendment aside, and we have to start talking about things like the Fourth Amendment, due process, things like that. Like, well, if you're on no-fly list, you can't buy a gun. Well, so rights were removed from that person without due process. He's never seen a court of law. He's never convicted of anything. Somebody decided that he rose to the level of being on a list. And people end up on lists for either legit or illegitimate reasons,
right,
with little to no oversight, right?
A lot of people don't realize that until you're there at the airport.
Yes. So, do you say, well, so sorry, national security, you can't buy a gun. So, like I said, if you're willing to start tromping on freedoms, and freedoms that I believe make this country what it is, if you want to turn into something else, my joke, and it's obviously it's taking things to a radical extreme, which is, I realize, not useful for discussion. It's like saying, well, all libertarians need to move to Somalia because it's libertarian heaven, right?
Right.
Is North Korea. They don't have a mass shooting problem.
Yeah.
They got other problems.
Right.
So, now, like I said, it's an extreme, it's a trope, right? But how far do you want to take America away from the American model into something else? This country was founded by people who didn't want to live like Europeans for one reason or another. And I believe that is one of the things that makes it great. It certainly makes it flawed. Much like a Glock, I don't say America's perfect.
Right.
But the idea of America is pretty darn good. It's a pretty amazing thing. And I'd like to see that spirit continue.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am a 45-year-old man with no kids. If I pass away tomorrow, which I would like to not, but if I leave tomorrow, I don't worry so much about, my kids having to inherit something.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, maybe I don't have much skin in the game, but at the same time, I'd like for this country to just continue, and freedoms are part of that. And like it or not, I know people want to pick and choose, but if we hold the First Amendment to such a high standard, that you can pretty much say anything. I mean, we pick away at it a bit, but for the most part, it's pretty strictly interpreted, right? Like we say what we want, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
The Second Amendment is not as strictly interpreted. As worded, I believe it is pretty clear,
mm-hmm.
but we have people argue in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
But how many constitutional rights do you want to start hacking away at in order to make everybody safe?
Mm-hmm.
We could be crime free, but it wouldn't be comfortable. Being secure in your person's place, objects, papers. We have that. Although, you could argue with the Patriot Act, maybe we don't have as much.
Right.
So that's probably enough of a soapbox on that. But that's my thought is if you can legitimately give me a law that fixes the problem, then I probably would be interested in hearing it. But telling me we'll ban this type of weapon, or we'll reduce magazine capacities,
right,
or we'll do background checks. Background checks sound great. Criminals don't do them.
Right.
And for that very reason, they are officially worthless.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm planning on being a law-abiding citizen, then I'll jump through whatever hoops you want. But the instant I decide I want to depart from that track, that I no longer care to be a law-abiding citizen, then why would I care about a background check?
Right.
That's an inconvenience that I don't feel like subjecting myself to. Most criminals do not buy their guns legally. That dude in Orlando, an exception to that rule. I'd also like to point out that he wasn't using an AR-15,
mm-hmm.
which everybody seems to be beating the drum on right now. They're stuck on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think even I don't know. Like for myself, with kids now, to see what happened within Connecticut years ago. It's like you said, I could see the point of you have to take a trauma class. You have to take X amount of courses before you're allowed to go for your concealed weapon. Then again, you go back to like what you said. Criminals, they just bypass all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
are you going to make people jump through hoops to have a right?
Right.
Then you start cutting out people who don't have time or money. So you're saying, okay, well, only rich people can have guns, poor people can't. Then we could say, well, maybe only rich people can vote. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like you said, you hear this stuff and it's coming up with an answer. Like you said, you just understand how it just keeps kind of going around and around.
I know. I mean, I see the frustration. Trust me, some of my relatives, I think, almost diametrically opposed to me in terms of viewpoint, and I don't think that they're unintelligent. In many cases, they're probably smarter than me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I've considered this universe pretty fully, and so, and I think their frustration is they want something done.
Right.
I get it. Like, this happened, we got to do something. But doing the wrong thing in the name of a fix makes it worse, right? It doesn't make it better. If we know, well, that was a terrorist attack, and we'll probably have another terrorist attack, so we should turn in all our guns. I mean, does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it doesn't. Maybe to some it does. So.
Yeah. It's like I said. It's, I don't know. You got some people who want to train, learn how to use it as a tool.
Yes. And
you have other people who kind of just want to get it, kind of afraid of having it, put it in the case, never pull it out again. Yeah. And I think like Crew Marcy explained to me, he goes, look, you're going to default to your lowest form of training.
Yes.
And it's the exact thing that I did even in a fight. I'm butt scooting on the mat. and it's like, what the hell? This is stand up type thing. And again, for me, I think if you want to take that responsibility, you have to take the training. I mean, I think it's great that you have to take the course. And again, I think he said, when it comes down to money, you don't want it to be just a rich, poor type of scenario. So again, it's above my intelligent level.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of potential criminal interactions where the intended victim has a gun get solved with no shots being fired.
Mm-hmm.
Most criminals don't want to be in a gunfight. That's not what they're out for.
Right.
You know, they would like a meal ticket. If you look like a meal, they're going to line up for a snack.
Right.
If you convince them that the price of that meal is going to be too high, most of the time they'll go somewhere else.
Okay.
The first time I ever drew my gun was way before I was a police officer. I was riding around. It's the same friend who almost got me in the fight at Sizzler. Many years later, I won't mention his name. I'm bad mouthing poor guy. He's probably going to see this, but we it was Mardi Gras, and we had gone and visited my aunt.
Okay.
And she was in another town over. This is just after Katrina, by the way, Hurricane Katrina. And, that had a profound impact on the entire Gulf Coast in terms of displacing people, increased crime. I mean, it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
I know that prior to Katrina, my grandparents lived in Baton Rouge. And they never ever said anything to me about, be careful, be safe, any of this, that, the other. And I'll tell you, after that, every time I told them I was Grandma and Grandpa, I'm going out, they would be like, don't you go anyplace bad, you be careful. Because it got bad.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Grandma and Grandpa who didn't go anywhere, do anything. Grandma went and played bingo every now and again, but, they weren't go out and party people, and they were well aware of the problems in that town. But I digress. So my friend is driving me back from a town across the river, and I kind of dozed off. I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I remember him, like he said, JD, have a gun on you. And that'll wake you up. So I kind of sit up, and I look over, and there are three guys, and we're stopped behind a car at a stoplight, so we're kind of in traffic, so there's nowhere for us to really go.
Okay.
And there's three guys walking straight at us. And to borrow an old Dirty Harry line, they don't look like they're out collecting for the March of Dimes.
Okay.
And I drew my gun, and started to pivot toward the window, and that's a very obvious move.
Yeah.
Drawing a gun doesn't look like any other physical thing ever, right? It's not like pulling a cell phone out. And I didn't even get the gun to the window, and they all stopped, turned 180 degrees, and walked away. Like before I ever got the muzzle up over the door frame.
Mm-hmm.
And then the light turned green, we drove off. And I proceeded to tell my friend that he was a moron for driving us, because it was right near one of the trailer parks where they had relocated people. And coincidentally, there's a crime spike there.
Okay.
And we almost got carjacked. Like, we came within, less than 10 yards.
Well, hell, if they know that movement that you just did, it sounds like they've done it before.
Yeah. Well, these weren't first timers.
Yeah.
These were pros.
Okay.
So, and this was, I don't know, what year was Katrina? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe 2005, 2000 something.
At that point, I'd done a decent amount of training, had a carry permit.
Mm-hmm.
Before my law enforcement career, and there I was, I was probably a few seconds away from trading some rounds with some people. It was an eye-opening experience.
Yeah.
Because I literally went from I was asleep.
Yeah.
To drawing my gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to do that again. But at the same time, I was like, well, it's kind of is what it is. But, your heart's beating in your chest. You're like,
right.
And the aftermath is when you feel the adrenaline. You don't feel it then. But we're driving along, and I'm like, I'm shaking.
Yeah, what's the dump? Yeah.
Hey, look at that. I'm shaking.
Right.
So, I don't even know if my friend even really thought about it. He's like, kind of something oblivious, just driving along. But, it was scary.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully, never had to. But again, for me with the concealed carry, it's mostly, for me, the protection of my wife and kids. The people, majority of people may think that they don't need that. That's fine.
Yeah.
For myself, if I'm by myself, hell, I can outrun
Yeah.
You know, I know enough to handle myself, but there's no way, like you can say that.
Yeah. Can you put all your kids on your shoulders and grab your wife and run at the same
just
pace?
Not
Can't do it.
happening.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, even now, I hear what just happened. You'll hear people, it's an ego thing, or but it's not for.
Yeah.
It might be for some people, but definitely for myself, no.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not like I feel like I need it, but again, try fighting somebody off after you just got whacked in the head unknowingly, and you know you're spaced out or something like that, or it's just.
Yeah, you can't plan for the best case scenario.
No.
You got to plan for the worst.
Right, and it sucks, you know, and it's just. Is it just how it is? Do people think, or am I just? To me, I just look at it like it is just something it is. Will something ever happen to me?
Yeah.
More than likely, no.
Yeah.
But for the health and the life of my wife and kids, you know, I'm not taking that option.
Yeah. When people say, "Oh, I got kids, so I don't want a gun,"
Right.
that seems like the exact opposite of where your mind should be.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, from my perspective, it's just like you. I don't think I run as fast as you, but I run. You know, I'll turn into something where, once again, the price of admission becomes too high. Like, I'll get somebody else.
Yeah.
But can I do that with, you know, my wife in tow, with friends in tow, my godson in tow?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have kids, but in a way I have kids.
Yeah.
But, you know, am I gonna go engage in a running battle with all them in tow? It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
There's just no way.
Right.
You know, so you gotta do something to even the odds.
Yeah. I think it's scary. Like, I got 15 nieces and nephews in the area.
Yeah.
You know, and their parents freak out if they know that I'm carrying.
Yeah.
But it's to me, it's just, I don't know. Is it depressing? I don't see it that way as a lifestyle in a sense. You know, just for me, it just is what it kind of is.
Yeah.
You know, but it's important for me to keep up on the training.
Yes.
And again, if other people talk to me, you know, that's one thing I definitely try to push. Just the constant training. Because again, just because you have it doesn't mean, you know, you're gonna know how to use it.
Yeah.
Type of thing. But I don't know. Who knows? Stuff goes from here.
Yeah. I think it's funny when people say, "Oh, you know, you just carry that because it makes you feel big," or this, that, the other. You know as well as I do, carrying a gun, it's actually kind of uncomfortable.
Right.
It is something you got to add to your world.
Right.
It's an added complication. And if you were doing it for ego or silliness, that might last for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to keep carrying it. I know a lot of cops don't carry off duty.
Really?
Yeah, I know cops don't carry off duty. One of the female cops in my agency, there was a guy who was, I don't want to say stalking, it's probably too strong a word, but there was a guy who lived near our district, and he was totally like watching her.
Really?
Like, he would come and he would like ask some of the other officers about her, and it was just creepy. Just creepy dude. And I asked her, I'm like, "Yo, you carry a gun off duty?" And she's like, "Well, I do now." Like, literally, that was like the moment where she's like, "Well, this is a problem."
Yeah.
You know, I think that for people who are serious, many of them have a moment, like the time where, you know, something bad happens or something almost bad happens, and you think, this is probably the time where I need to get a little serious.
Right.
You know, I had several of those in my life where, you know, one, spur me to buy a gun, and then two, spur me to get serious about, one, getting a carry permit, two, engaging in a lot of training, you know, trying to understand what I needed to do to be good with that gun.
Yeah.
And to be safe with that gun, because obviously that's important.
Right.
Yeah, so seminal moments, like they drive you.
And then mine's so different. I mean, I'm grateful that I didn't have like an experience, anything similar to that. But I think Kali is the one that got me into it because, you know, I started jiu-jitsu. Muay Thai hurts.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden you introduce a knife. Weapons. It's like, I don't want nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
And then that just kind of transitions into, you know, firearms, just thinking of ranges in a sense. And again, like you said, I would want people to do that, but it's not cheap, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of time and it takes money. But if you can.
Yeah.
You know who Mark Denny is?
Yes.
Yeah, Guru Mark Denny, Crafty Dog. I think it was one of his videos. He was talking about, and I'm gonna butcher this story. You can go find it on YouTube. I'm sure it's still out there. Have you ever taken a seminar with him?
No.
Recommend.
Okay.
Recommend. he'll give you some stuff that you can instantly use.
Okay.
He's very much about simple, straightforward stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's doing a lot of seminars anymore, but brilliant guy, and he's really good. He's funny, like he's engaging, really good dude.
Right.
But he was talking in one of his videos about guy runs a gym, Muay Thai.
Okay.
This guy's like, I think either pro or semi-pro fighter, brilliant fighter, probably like 20-1, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's closing up his gym, sees strong arm robbery, sees this guy like yank a purse off this female, get in his car and drive away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think he probably like punched the woman or whatever. And the guy runs some traffic, so he's like can't drive anywhere. So this guy takes off after him. He's going to go get him.
Right.
And you know, like this guy beats 99.9% of the population in any kind of fight.
Right.
You know, just period. Like he's going to wear him out. And he runs up to the window to basically skull drag this guy out of the car and fix the problem. And the guy turns around, shoots him, center punches him one time with a gun. Center mass, guy drops right there, and he's dead.
Really?
Yeah, it's just, you know, he was prepared for a fight, but not that fight.
Right.
You know, he didn't recognize the game he was playing.
Yeah.
It was a different game. And that's, I think the benefit of Kali is it makes you understand
Mm-hmm.
that there's more than one game.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to at least have an awareness that they're there,
Right.
or they'll get you.
Okay.
You know, you don't necessarily have to be a master at everything, but you better be prepared to see what's there and make it to where you don't have to deal with that part of the game.
That's a scary realization.
Yes.
For that. Because was even like I said, you bring a knife into the game. I thought a gun was bad. You know.
God, they're both bad, just different bad. Knife's bad. Close range, somebody even remotely knows what they're doing. Heck, even somebody doesn't know what they're doing. Yeah. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, I'm going to take the pointy end and I'm going to put it in the person I don't like, and I'm going to keep doing it until, you know, they're either laying on the ground or dead.
Yeah.
There was a murder on the train downtown. It was about a year ago.
Okay.
Guys riding the train, just basically going up and down the car, like robbing people. And he had been previously arrested, like, I don't know, 3 days ago for fighting with cops and a bunch of other stuff. And DC is just notorious for doing. There's 2 crimes in DC. There's murder and misdemeanors. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, he gets, you know, booted out on recognizance till his court date. And so he's riding the train, and you know, he's robbed a bunch of people, and he tells this one guy, you know, give me your cell phone. And the kid's like, no. And this guy's like, you know, his victim is like, you know, 23, 24, student, brilliant dude, just, you know, a good guy. Mm-hmm. And so when he tells him no, you know, the guy gets mad and throws him on the ground and just starts stabbing him. And he must have stabbed him like 17 or 18 times. Like, just laid on top of him and stabbed him. You know, that guy obviously didn't survive that encounter. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's could be your Tuesday if you're not careful. Yeah. You know, so
it's crazy. I mean, even again, I go back to the training because I've spoken to other cops, so they have rolled up to a situation for like a knife attack, and it turns out that it was the guy who wanted to defend himself, pulled the knife, and had it taken away from him, and then used against him.
Yeah.
You know,
it happens. There was I guess I might as well call it a knife fight because that's what happened at Boston at the metro station there. And I don't know all the specifics of the story. It's been a while since I read the report, but mm-hmm. you know, it starts as a verbal altercation and then goes down to the station, and 2 guys start trying to stab each other, and one of them was better at it than the other. In fact, the victim, who was, like I said, I feel a kind of contributor too, he'd been previously stabbed like 6 or 8 months ago, so didn't have like full use of one arm. Like, he was a mess already, and you know, I think he probably needs to pick some different people to associate with.
Right. Sounds like
2-time loser, but you know, he friggin', you know, gets the worst end of that deal. Fortunately, you know, officers show up immediately after, contain the situation. The victim would have been dead if an officer hadn't put a tourniquet on him, by the way. Okay. There's another plug for you. Because, yeah, he was bleeding out through his brachial artery. Okay. So if he hadn't, you know, he caught a stab in the arm, if he hadn't a tourniquet, he wouldn't be here today. And, you know, stuff like that just happens around you sometimes. You know, I think that's one of the things that gets people the worst is, you know, they're not directly in an issue, but an issue starts to happen. Mm-hmm. And people often react in denial. Right. Like, this isn't happening. Yeah. And if you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. You know, most of the time, if you start seeing a situation develop, you can just leave. You know, if you see two guys almost get into a fight at a bar and one of them leaves, you should leave.
Right.
Because the leaving guy is probably going to go get a gun and come back.
Yeah.
It's a good time to call it a night.
I could think of Joe Pesci telling him, keep him here. Keep him here.
Yeah, don't ever, yeah. But yeah, if you see somebody like disgruntled, like rolls out, you know, it's probably time to, you know, throw some cash on the table and depart yourself. You know, if you see something start to happen in front of you, you know, leave. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And you go back to just situational awareness. And I don't know where. I don't know if it's just the phones. Everyone's got their face in the phones. Or
yeah, but before that, people were doing newspapers or people were spacing out. Phones are bad. They're the most obvious target. I mean, if you ever ride the train, you see everyone's like, you know,
yeah, exactly.
Or even walking down the street, you see that. Like, I'm surprised more people don't walk out into traffic and get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they're just literally not paying attention to what they're doing. And it's definitely made things bad. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe we just need like the Google glasses and you could just see the whole phone on your lenses and you walk around. It's probably like 5 years out or something like that. But
now, do you see any solution for that? I mean, just people
situational awareness,
right?
No, because situational awareness is hard.
Okay.
Paying attention's hard. Heck, even being streetwise enough to see what is a problem and what's not is hard. Mm-hmm. One of the basic things they teach you, there's a book called Left of Bang, which I very much recommend. I forget the author. That's a brilliant book. It was recommended to me by a coworker who's also a brilliant dude. I won't call him out either. I'll leave him alone. But Left of Bang. Okay. And it kind of breaks down from a basic military perspective how to look at an area or anything. Okay. And recognize what's normal and then recognize what's not normal. Mm-hmm. Also, another good book, Gift of Fear, which you probably heard of that one, Gavin DeBecker. He talks about that as well, kind of from a different perspective, but also it's a good book. But if you know what's normal in any given area, like this is normal, this is how people behave, when you see something that doesn't fall into that norm, then you know there's a problem. Yeah. And maybe it's not a bad problem. You know, maybe it's just somebody who's, you know, I don't know, got an issue or they're lost or broken down or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when things don't follow the normal pattern of events, then it's something you should look at. Okay. You know, and see, is that something I need to care about or not? Yeah. I often see people like in that denial phase. Like I've taken reports of people who were assaulted because they kind of just let themselves be drawn in to a situation. You know, it was the same thing. Oh, this isn't really a bad thing. I don't care. Okay. Craig Douglas, South Narc. Okay. Another guy, you should definitely read his material, and he teaches some good classes. He talks about the criminal interview. Mm-hmm. This is an interview you want to fail, by the way, right? Yeah. You know, where somebody approaches you and tries to gain your confidence. Yeah. You know, and they'll lead you down the path. They'll try and put you in a position of disadvantage, and then rob you, assault you, do what they want to do. You know, but they'll, you know, is this they're measuring you? Is this person going to be an easy mark, or is he not? Right. You know, can I, you know, lead this person along, follow them around, have them follow me until I'm where I want to be with them, and then, you know, then I'll do what I want to do. Yeah. You know, I saw that happen to a group of guys. I took the report afterwards, and it followed like the checklist, but like, you know, they were hanging out, and they were in an area that wasn't heavily populated, and some other guys started hanging around them. Mm-hmm. You know, and they weren't really being super aggressive, but they weren't really being nice. Right. But they were hanging around. Yeah. And they started following them around. And these guys did nothing to break contact or call attention to themselves, like go where there were more people or call the cops or anything. Like they literally just kind of let it keep happening. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, these guys get bolder and bolder because, well, they didn't squawk when I did this, so now I'll do that. Yeah. And, you know, of course, these guys end up getting beaten up and robbed. You know, still alive, you know, but they weren't in particularly good physical shape when I got to them. And it was literally that paradigm where, you know, it starts with these guys are just kind of hanging around me, but I'll ignore them and maybe they'll go away. Right. To they're talking to me right now. Why are you talking to me? Yeah. Well, I'll try and be nice to them. You know, maybe they'll go away. And if you keep thinking, I'll just go one more step and maybe they'll go away. It's like Europe with the Germans invading, right? Like we'll give them Poland and maybe they'll go away. Right. It doesn't work, right? Yeah. So
that's a scary thing because I've had that happen. Yes. You know, just people kind of, hey, ask me a question, and you got a pumping gas or something like that, and it's just for me, it's like stern look, confident answer back, you know. And it, again, I'm a little surprised. I'm 6'2", 200 pounds, but again, you know,
they don't know if you're soft or you're going to put up a fight.
Right.
They don't know.
It's crazy. And I think, I mean, what I do, I try not to get caught up like in the face. You know, I'm kind of saying, where are the hands? What are the hands doing? Type thing. I mean, what else should you be looking for?
Hands.
Always hands.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where the entertainment's going to come from.
Yeah.
Say entertainment.
Right.
Yeah. If they're going to produce a knife, produce a gun, or even try to assault you, it's going to be with their hands.
Yeah. Everything else is just a distraction.
I have yet to see a street encounter that opened up with anybody throwing a kick or pulling guard. I'm sure it's happened somewhere, but it's totally like man bites dog, right? It just never happens. Right. It's probably going to be hands. Okay. You know, the most untrained guy on the planet thinks he's got a bomb of a right haymaker that he's going to try and land on you, and that's if he's not using a weapon. And you know, people are tool users. You know, why am I going to go to all the trouble of trying to punch you in the face and I can poke you with a screwdriver, stab you with a knife, or maybe I'll bring some friends. So you always got to watch and see if somebody else is trying to walk around behind you.
Yeah.
When I was much younger, I was in that criminal interview process, and I was failing. I mean, by failing, I mean I was personally failing, like, because I was getting drawn along by this guy. You know, I was like, I don't know, like 19 years old, wasn't streetwise at all. I'm like downtown Roanoke, and some guy's like, "Hey, man, how's it been going?" Like, he's acting like he knows me. I'm like, you know, I don't know you, but he's like following me around. And I'm like, maybe he's just drunk or whatever. And he's like, "Hey, let's go over here." And I'm like, started to follow him. Unfortunately, somebody was with me. You had like sense in their heads, like, "No, Jay," and grabbed me and like said, "We're not going with them. Let's run away." And I was like, "Oh." I was being dumb, like, but I, you know, it's my first experience with that world. I didn't know. Fortunately, that was a fairly painless lesson. Right. That was fortunate. You know, seriously, I might have been 19. Okay. At that time. You know, it's easy when you're a cop because you see, you're a study of human behavior, and you can very quickly see when someone's got bad intentions. Sometimes the best thing you can do if you're a cop and you know where the bad guys are is look for somebody who's a good victim. Like, oh, that guy would make a great victim. And then just stand there with that guy because you'll see somebody watching that guy. Really? I've pulled somebody off the train before. Like, because he was sitting there counting money on the train. And there were a whole group of, I think, less than honor roll kids who were watching him. And I literally pulled him off the train because I was like, "You're about to get jacked." And he didn't even know.
You're like, slapping the back of the head. I don't know what's going on.
You know, the verbal equivalent thereof, right, of course. But I literally like, "Dude, come here." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Come with me." And we got off the train goes away, and he was like, "What?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Get on the next train, put away your money." You know, he was going to get jacked. He had a big knot of 20s, probably had like $200 or $300 on him. Man, if you're some kid, that's a score right there. That's a good day. So.
It's crazy. I mean, what would you recommend people do? Because I know with my kids right now, you know, if we go in a restaurant, if we go anywhere, I'll tell them, "All right, we're going to play this game," and then I'll ask them a couple questions. How many people did you see, say, like in a red shirt, or was it a male or female behind that counter? Just try to make it fun. Yeah. But I mean, what could like the average person do, like an adult, in a sense? Just
I mean, it's the thing where you look for things that don't belong. Does a person not belong? Is the situation not right? Yeah. You can tell there's I think Left of Bang calls it atmospherics. When everybody's cool, like everybody's talking and everyone seems at ease, you know, then there's no problem. And they talked about this like overseas, like, you know, when you're downtown in some place in Iraq or Afghanistan, and suddenly everything is quiet and people start going away and people start shutting doors and windows start shutting. You're about to get ambushed. Like, that's how you know. That's an extreme example, but you can tell whether everyone's at ease in any given area or not. I'm sure that we could break it down and articulate the human behaviors. I don't know that I'm lucid enough to do a checklist, but you know, when things change, anytime you see a change in that, it's time to watch out. It may not be time to pack up your stuff and run out the door, but it's definitely time to watch out and see what's going on. To do that, you have to pay attention. You know, another friend of mine was talking, I think his niece, student in DC, and, you know, he tried to talk to her about, you know, here's what you need to do, and, to make yourself safe and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, in one ear, out the other.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, whatever, you're a square, I'm cool. Square's not cool, right?
Right.
I used to be cool like 20, 30 years ago. They hosed me off, threw me out of Cool Town. Never been back. But, she didn't want to hear what he had to say.
Yeah.
And so, of course, she, within like a month or two of being there, she almost gets jacked. Like, and it's just her cell phone, which is, kids love stealing cell phones. You make a quick check, make quick money. But, she almost gets robbed.
Mm-hmm.
And then she calls my friend back, and tells him about it. And, this was, basically she was doing everything that was contrary to what he told her to do to begin with.
Right. Did she come to the light afterwards?
I don't know. I think it might have been like a little glimmer, and then the window might have closed.
I don't understand. That's what's so hard for me to understand. It's like the fight or flight type thing.
Yeah.
And I can understand.
Or freeze.
Right.
Or freeze.
I don't know. I can't just imagine just freezing, or not saying that it couldn't happen
common.
to me.
It's common.
Yeah.
If you encounter a situation that you have no plan for,
Mm-hmm.
that's the usual time that freeze happens.
Mm-hmm.
Something you haven't trained for, you haven't gamed out in your head, and it happens.
Yeah.
Because we're good at making plans in the absence of stress.
Mm-hmm.
We are horrible at coming up with plans in the midst of stress as humans.
Okay.
We just are, right?
Yeah.
If this is something you haven't either trained or gamed out, and sometimes you can just visualize. Like, you can visualize
Right.
problems and how you want to fix them.
Yeah. It's like dry firing. In a sense.
Yes. Mine's a powerful tool. I don't want to rehash. I know you talked with Shannon about it. Lanny Bassam is with Winning in Mind. He talks about Basham. He talks about visualization, because I think he's an Olympic level shooter, but there was like a good 6 months or a year where he couldn't pick up a gun.
Yeah.
So he, in his mind, visualized the entire process and shooting and killing bullseyes, and I think like a year later he like placed second or third
Mm-hmm.
in another match,
Mm-hmm.
like national level match. Like,
Yeah.
it was like he never put the gun down, but because he was so strict in his visualization routine that he just, it wasn't a problem. He just picked up the gun, like he never put it down.
Right. Because I remember we did that in basketball.
Yeah.
I remember they did a study on that free throws, and I think there's only a 2% difference with somebody who actually shot it as compared to, visualized.
See yourself hitting it. Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
So tell me, training wise, because I know the times I've shot with you,
Yeah.
it's like I've run a freaking marathon by the time I'm done. I'm just exhausted, afterwards. And I think that one drill that we did where you guys were trying to put a round in that same hole.
Yeah.
First of all, shooting index.
At speed, yeah.
Index cards is,
Yes.
forget about it.
If you can hit an index card, you can hit a person.
It's like, that was crazy. And then, like I said, trying to put a round in that same hole was pretty intense.
I'll identify a weakness, or at least something I want to be better at.
Mm-hmm.
And then, here's the good thing about drills, is there's so many off the shelf that you don't really have to craft your own. There's a ton of books, a ton of websites.
Right.
Pistoltraining.com, brilliant website.
Yeah.
The guy who ran that, now deceased, Todd Lewis Green.
Mm-hmm.
I only met him a handful of times, by the way.
Okay.
But I would say that he was definitely an influence on my shooting.
Okay.
Through his writing, some of his videos. One of the big proponents of carrying appendix style, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Huge proponent of that, and really kind of brought that forward a bit into the mainstream. But he has a ton of drills on his website. He was a masterclass shooter, by the way. Used to work for SIG for a while. Like, I ran into him a handful of times. Brilliant shooter, but brilliant at breaking things down and coming up with ways to either test yourself or improve yourself.
Okay.
So I like his website. Like I said, a bunch of good drills on there. I across the board recommend it. So either find a drill that addresses your problem, or you create a drill to address your problem. And then you either dry fire or live fire that drill until you are out of ammo, or your fingers are bloody, or you're not making any headway. Like, you just beat that drill to death.
Yeah.
And I often do that. And I like to bring, somebody with me to the range who's competent enough to recognize when I'm doing something stupid, so they can go, you need to correct this, you need to correct that.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we'll just keep doing it. Break out the timer, break out the score sheet, just keep going. You have to hold yourself to standards when you practice. Accuracy and or time.
Okay.
If you are not making a nod to those two things as part of your practice, you're probably not practicing as well as you could.
Okay.
The only way to get faster is to shoot faster. And I know that sounds like some silliness, but a lot of times, especially beginner and even some intermediate shooters, they have like one speed. Like I go bang, 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 and that's it. You have to force yourself to throw that out and shoot faster. And I like to shoot until I'm not hitting.
Okay.
Like I'll shoot until my accuracy starts to fall off. Then I'll try and bring it back.
Okay.
Like maybe I need to slow down a little bit. Maybe I need to bring the target in. Maybe I need to do something different. So for speed, sometimes I will literally just like, as long as they're hitting the backstop, I don't even care.
Right.
I'm going to get that gun out and I'm going to send how many rounds? 3, 4, 6. And I'm going to watch the gun. I'm going to see what the gun's doing. I'm going to feel what the gun's doing. The only way you can do that, the only way to build speed is to do that. Now, like I said, you got to keep it real. Like you can't just, I'm just going to go crazy. Bang, 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 bang.
Right.
You know, at some point I got to reel it in. I like to practice to where I'm hitting between 75 and 85%.
Okay.
If I'm hitting at 75, I probably need to slow down a little bit. If I'm hitting over 90%, I probably need to speed it up a little bit.
Okay.
Obviously, that doesn't help you from a pure accuracy standpoint. But if you're trying to improve your speed while still maintaining an acceptable level of accuracy, like I said, you got to force yourself to run that gun harder and faster.
Okay.
I will usually warm up with a pure accuracy drill. No time. I'll take a 3x5 card, start at 5 yards, put 5 rounds on it. I'll move it to 7, put 5 more on it, move it to 10, put 5 more on it, move it to 15, put 5 on it, move it to 25. That's hard, by the way. 5 rounds on a 3x5 card at 25 is legit. Occasionally I can get all 5 on. That is a no joke. If you can get 5 on that card every time, then I bow to your marksmanship skills, because it is a challenge. The duty gun, I think it might be easier with a red dot on a pistol.
Okay.
That is a totally separate deal.
Yeah.
I think that universe, I think it'll become to the point where it's worthwhile for most people. I think it's still in its infancy technology-wise. I think it's legitimate for some people now, but I feel like in 5 or 10 years, maybe
you think a lot more people will be moving to the red dot?
Yeah. On a pistol.
So I think was it Suarez International? I think.
Yeah, Suarez. Who I don't agree with everything that comes out of Gabe's mouth, but you know, when he's right, he's right. And he was one of the early proponents of putting red dots on pistols. Yeah, and he was right. You know, there's something to that. You know, there's a lot of guys who are advocating it now. Gary Roberts, who is a ballistics expert, who does a lot of terminal ballistics testing with ballistics gel, and he's one of many, but he's one who posts a lot of his stuff on the web, so you can see the results of a lot of his tests. Whereas a lot of people kind of keep it to themselves. He's been running a red dot on a pistol for at least the past 4 or 5 years. Really? Testing it out with multiple individuals. Like they've tested a bunch of different red dots, and his results are interesting in terms of durability, in terms of usability. They're getting better. Okay. He did say, and based on me seeing other people, I tend to agree with him. Inside 12 yards, most people are faster with iron sights. Okay. Almost always. Inside 12 yards, people are faster with iron sights. If we want to go back to statistics, most gunfights happen, 3 yards, 3 seconds, 3 rounds. Yeah. I mean, lies in statistics, but most gunfights happen pretty close. But I will say that at longer ranges, if you look at, I think it was Claude Werner did a study of LAPD shootings in 2015. He does a lot of statistical analysis. Another guy.
Does he make it public?
Yep, on Facebook and various other places on the web. Okay. He also has an excellent CD about avoiding negative outcomes with a firearm, and that's worth listening to as well. Okay. But he did a statistical breakdown of the shootings that LAPD was involved in 2015 in terms of distances. And once you got to 2 car lengths away, like nobody was hitting. Like nobody was making hits except on innocent bystanders. Like it just goes out the window. The pistol's strength is it's small and you can portable, but its weakness is unless you're highly trained, the accuracy is not great.
Yeah.
I think red dots mitigate some of that.
Okay.
On a pistol. They do. For long range shooting, a red dot does wonders on a pistol.
Because right now I'm in the process of just kind of going through my carry ammo because everything's doing different stuff at 25 yards for me right now.
Yeah, you got to settle on what you want.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing I'm going through right now. Tell me the benefits of the 10-10-10 drill.
Yeah, it's a balance of speed and accuracy.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, I think I want to say either Hackathorn or Vickers was the first person to come up with a test, but there are a lot of variations. You can start from the low ready. You don't even have to start from the holster. Okay. But I feel like if you're at least an intermediate shooter, you should draw. Yeah. But to shoot, what's in effect like 4.5 inch circle,
it's like a B8 target or something. Like that?
And you want to keep everything 90 plus.
Yeah.
So that's keeping it in the black at 10 yards in 10 seconds. So you've got to control that recoil. You've got to get a good sight picture, and you got to not crush that gun. Like you've got to let it stay flat.
Right.
And the temptation is for at least one of those rounds to, increase your grip and force that gun down.
Right.
And then rounds go not where you want them.
That's what I'm stuck at now. I think it's the third or fourth shot is flying on me.
Yeah. Like how bad is it flying, I guess is the question.
It's like inch, 2 inches outside the box.
Not bad.
I'm not missing a paper, thankfully.
Yeah. So,
but I'm guessing if it's 3 or 4, but that's like you said, I kind of get the first two I know in.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find a rhythm. And I think when I'm trying to find that rhythm is when they kind of go a little astray, and then it's tightening up towards the end.
Yeah, if you start changing your cadence, it makes it harder on you.
Okay.
Like for any shooting drill, you have to find a rhythm.
Yeah.
Appropriate for the distance that you're trying to work. The best I've done on that's a 99.
Really?
9 in the 10 or X, and 1 in the one slightly out. My boy Peck's done a clean 100. But he's only done it once, so I told him it's luck. He can't do it again.
Right.
I did buy him ice cream when he did that. But, that is a fairly, I'd say it's more a higher level test.
Okay.
It's been my experience, if you put a 3x5 card horizontal, not vertical, horizontal, put it at 7 yards, tell somebody to draw, put 2 on it. No time limit. I want you to draw, put 2 rounds on that 3x5 card. Most people can't do it.
Okay.
Like I said, I say there's no time limit.
Yeah.
I'm not timing you. And there's no beep. There's no turning target. Just draw and put 2 rounds on that 3x5 card that's horizontal.
Yeah.
Horizontal card, less forgiving of, you overcorrecting that gun, pushing it. I'll tell you, I think if you can do that, then you're not a bad shooter. You can always get better, but I almost feel like that's kind of, the hurdle. Like if you can get there, then we can probably.
It's 7 feet or 7 yards. 7 yards. 21 feet.
2 hits. Don't even time yourself. Now, ideally, you do it under 2 seconds.
Right.
From the holster. That's a real work there.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so like I'll often take somebody to the range, and if they're like, hey, let's do some stuff at the range. I don't know what their skill level is, right? Like I can do some crazy stuff. It's not going to help them, or I can do some real basic stuff, and that's not going to help them. So I'll just do a couple of things and see where they're at. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things. Like we'll just start on a 3x5 card, and we'll start up close and just keep moving it out and see what they're doing.
Okay.
You can tell a lot from that. So, and it's, if you got nothing better to do, that's something you can certainly test yourself with. Dot torture is another one. I don't know if you've ever seen dot torture.
Dot tortures I've done.
Useful. Start at 3 yards. I mean, if you can clean it at 3 yards, move it to 4.
Yeah.
1 box of 50 rounds gets you through it.
Yep.
So.
That's a difficult one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think 8 and 9. Whatever the one where you got to drop 2 and then transition to 2.
Yes.
That's.
Yeah.
Things get a little crazy.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good drill too, because again, you're working your dominant hand, your non-dominant hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember it was one of the IDPA indoor nationals at Virginia. It's Norfolk County Rifle Range.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Horner's dad owns that range.
Okay.
Daniel Horner now, I believe, a member of the Army Marksmanship Unit. He's like a phenom, like 14 years old.
Right.
Never shot a USPSA match before, shows up and wins. But that's, he's been shooting since his dad could get a gun in his hand.
Right.
And one of the drills, I say drill like it was one of the standard stages, was target. I think it was like 7 yards, single IDPA target. You draw and fire 6 rounds. You only had 6 in the gun, so you get a slide lock reload. Then you reload, and you're only allowed strong hand only, 6 rounds. Then do a tack load, transfer to your support hand, 6 rounds. So it's a lot going on, right? 18 rounds. And I was, first time I tried, of course, I was abysmal at it. Like, I think Daniel did it in like 13 or 14 seconds clean.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I'm like up in the 20s. You know, I stink at it. But that was one of the things that I took away. Like, I'm going to do this until I don't stink at it anymore. I still have a hard time with it with my duty weapon because it's kind of a pig. I have managed to do it in 14 with a Glock, but down 2.
Okay.
Which is a side note. Like I said, if you can choose what you shoot, you know.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I like the Glock.
So I got to get back to the index card. But you know what happens? I get there and the paper's all shot up.
Yeah.
And then they're not, some will give you a clean board.
Yeah.
Well, majority of the time it's like, forget it.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
I've got pretty good luck with getting them to give me a clean one. For one time they didn't, and I decided that if they were going to keep doing that, I was going to bring a shotgun and warm it with a shotgun.
Right.
And I was literally just going to go all the way across, ding, 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 until the whole cardboard fell down.
Right.
Like, now I need new cardboard.
Right.
But it hasn't come to that.
Yeah.
But I'll do it. I got a whole box of buckshot.
It's like I can't bring enough tape to fix
to
up
put it
these
back
boards.
together.
It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
It's just like, because like, I'm going by the end of the day, and it's got to be over, 3,000 rounds already going through that piece of paper.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, marksmanship for your average person who shows up is not great.
Yeah.
So.
It's true. So. But look, man, I don't want to keep you any, but I really appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, not a problem.
You know, I definitely love to get you back, too. And definitely love to shoot with you again.
Yeah.
We can get that going.
You're welcome anytime.
So that'd be really cool.
Because I, too, usually go about once a week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm figuring out that's kind of what I have to do, because it's definitely not like riding a bike, especially for me.
No. Do you dry fire?
Yeah. Not as much. I picked it up after I sat with Shannon again.
Yeah.
Because then, do you keep a journal?
No, and I should. That is my failing. And I'll tell you, Shannon, not the only person advocating that.
Yeah.
Multiple very high-level shooters advocate keeping a journal. So that's my bad.
Because I definitely, that's helped too.
Yeah.
Kind of looking at the good and the bad. But, because again, you forget, you know, kind of what you do. But cool. I mean, like I said, I'd love to have you on again.
Yeah, I'll be back if you want.
Yeah. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.